Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables and sponsored by Analyst Depot. I am your host, Ashley. This is our other host, Michael Duncan. How are you, Michael?
Hey, everyone. I'm great, Ashley. It's wonderful to see you on this wonderful
know.
Wednesday.
Just
The
another
Eagles
Wednesday.
won by a lot of points. It felt very good.
I know. I can't say the same.
No.
I can never say the same as a Giants fan, so it's fine. It's fine. We're back a week after our last podcast and what has felt like the longest week on earth for NFL news. Most of our show today is going to be looking at news. I mean, a lot of the breaking headlines from this week, big injuries, couple of big wins and losses, couple of really interesting trade and waiver wire pickups. So we'll break down all of that for you. But as always, we can get started with our injury news. I think we are ready to go. Jump right into it today. So, quarterback news. Jameis Winston is going to be out probably for the rest of the season. Well, yes, for the rest of the season.
He's out for the rest of the season.
Yeah. With an ACL and MCL damage and tears. I believe the ACL is torn and the MCL is like damaged, is what they officially said. And good news on the flip of that is that Taysom Hill is expected to clear concussion protocol and play this week.
So he should be the starting quarterback for the rest of the season.
Yeah, except Simeon did beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, so that was crazy. So in Jameis Winston's absence, Jameis Winston was on a revenge tour and tore his ACL on that.
I don't know if you did that pun on purpose, but
I didn't. But then after I said it, I was like, that really didn't.
I'm considering ending the show right now.
Do you want to? We can.
I'm thinking about it.
Okay. If not, we'll get into the next one. Sam Darnold took a big hit to the head in the game against the Falcons. He's in concussion protocol. PJ Walker came in as the backup. Huge running back news. Derrick Henry had a foot injury called the Jones fracture, which is a break on the outside of the foot. He had surgery yesterday, Tuesday, involving putting a pin in and a wire through the middle of the metatarsal, which is the bone in your foot. The craziest part of it all is that he came back into the game after the injury and looked like okay. I won't say he looked great. Like he didn't.
Sure, he had like 28 carries though.
Yeah, like they just kept using him, and then he had a broken foot. So there is no clear timetable on this. I think they're kind of leaving it open for interpretation because they're currently very good in the playoff picture. So there is a chance that Derrick Henry is able to come back if the Titans are still in the running for playoffs. But as of now, he is out. And they did pick up Adrian Peterson, I guess, to try and fill a role. I'm not going to say Adrian Peterson is going to be Derrick Henry. I think they're going to use a couple of the guys they have on the team with depth, but they did pick up Adrian Peterson.
But the bright side there for the Titans is that, I think they initially said 6 to 10 weeks, and I think it's more likely to be 8 to 10 weeks. So there's a chance Derrick Henry comes back in time for their playoff push. And, Adrian Peterson actually looked pretty decent the past couple of seasons, as old as he might be. He was with Washington for 2 years and then the Detroit Lions last year. And honestly, like as far as free agent running backs go, yeah, he's old, but he also fits the mold of exactly what they want to do pretty well. So if he has anything left in the tank, then, obviously I think they're going to lean a little bit more on guys like A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill, and hopefully Julio Jones if he's healthy to get them to the playoffs. But I think Adrian Peterson will probably step for the most part if he shows that he's, healthy and ready to go. He'll step a large majority into that role. So
I agree. So that was, I think, the indication that our week was going to be nuts. So next is James Robinson, who left the game early. Urban Meyer said it was a bruised heel and that he's currently unsure of how long he will be out. It seems that he avoided any major injuries and he is going to be day to day. Damian Williams exited early, did not return after having a knee injury, said he was due to have imaging, but there have been no updates since. And Justin Jackson suffered a quad injury that is not believed to be serious at this time. Okay, on to the wide receivers. Jalen Reagor suffered an ankle injury, was ruled out for the rest of the game. There is no clear updates on that since, but it seems he also avoided any major injuries. Denzel Mims suffered a finger injury, exited the game early. Sterling Shepard had a left quad strain. He's expected to be out through the bye week. Joe Judge did that thing again when Kadarius Toney was on our injury report for the first time, and he was like, not season ending. And everyone was like, what the hell do you mean? We didn't think it was season ending. What do we think? Ding ding. What did we think? We didn't think it was season ending. And then he was like, not season ending. And so he did that thing again where he's like, hopefully it's not too bad. And we're like, we didn't think it was that bad until you say things like this. So
he's the worst.
He is. Kadarius Toney suffered a thumb injury. It looked a lot worse than it was. Based off of like his pain, he looked to be in a lot of pain. He went back to the locker room, came back out, rejoined the game. So seems he avoided any major injuries there. T.Y. Hilton suffered a concussion in the fourth quarter on Sunday. So he has to clear the 5 steps of the NFL's concussion protocol in order to return to play for this week. For tight ends, Rob Gronkowski had quote unquote back spasms, but Arians said it was kind of a flare up of his old injuries when he sustained those internal and broken rib injuries, and that he probably shouldn't have come back this soon. For our defense and O-line report, 3 major injuries. Danielle Hunter tore his pectoral muscle. He was put on IR from Minnesota. Jabril Cox, the linebacker from Dallas, tore his ACL and is going to be out for the rest of the season. And Trayvon Diggs had a sprained ankle. I haven't seen any updates on that since, but that's 2 huge pieces of Dallas that would be out if both of them missed time this week. Dak Prescott I didn't put that. I forgot to put that on the list. Dak Prescott ended up not playing this week with that calf strain. You and I talked about last week that we kind of got a little bit of bad vibes from it, and turns out he ended up not playing. So his backup came in, Cooper Rush. And for the first time, I have a kicker on our injury report. I usually do not have them on here, or kicker news on here, but Chris Boswell took a really bad hit to the head on a fake field goal for Pittsburgh and had to go through the NFL's concussion protocol, out for the rest of the game. And Pittsburgh had to play the rest of the game without a kicker. That was wild. They had to keep going for 2-pointers and just keep going for it. It was just, they were just slinging it with an old man quarterback.
Shows you how important kickers are until you have to play a game without one.
Right. And everyone's like, we really should be going for a field goal here, but
it's wildly exciting though.
It really is.
The Eagles have done it, I feel like, more than once in the past couple of years, and it's always just, it's always a great time. Always an adventure.
Yep. You said you had a couple of, we talked about Taysom Hill. Yeah, so that's it for our injury news. We can jump into our actual news segments. Do you want to get us started?
Sure. Yeah. So this, it was kind of a, so we have an Undroppables group chat. We have a couple of them, and normally we like to send in like relevant news and stuff, and we talk about it a little bit. And it just feels like these past like 24 to 48 hours have just been kind of nonstop in terms of like, we'll send something in and then it's like an hour, 2-hour long conversation, and then things just kept happening. It has been a bit of a hellish couple of days as an NFL fan, to be honest, ever since football stopped on Sunday. But, to start, I think we'll get this one out of the way. Obviously, the most disheartening news and the worst news to come out of these past couple of days was Henry Ruggs, former wide receiver for the Las Vegas Raiders, former first-round pick. I forget, he went in the mid-teens, out of Alabama. Yesterday, on November 2nd, Tuesday, he was found to be in a car crash, and he was cited for DUI at 3:40 in the morning, and he was found to be driving over 150 miles per hour. He damaged another car and killed both a person and a dog inside of it. And he has since been, I don't think he hasn't been sentenced or anything yet, but in the hours since then, the Raiders have put out a statement. The Raiders have released him. We've seen reports just kind of getting worse and worse about the things that lead it up to him. He was twice the legal limit in terms of intoxication. And it's just been really disheartening because you see this kind of thing all the time. And, you see success and you have these people that have all of the opportunity in the world and they have the world in the palm of their hands. And unfortunately, because of bad decisions, it's wasted. And a lot of times it's these guys that have every opportunity to not fall for these types of mistakes. We live in 2021. He was in Las Vegas and Uber is a thing. Lyft is a thing. Taxis are a thing. He is a professional athlete for a multi-billion-dollar industry. And I guarantee you that if he called anyone associated with that team, they would make sure he had a way to get home.
The NFL does. The NFL has a program where you can call a driver.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. It's just there's so many ways that he could have avoided this and he didn't. And equally so, I don't know all the reports in terms of what he was doing that night, who he was with, but the people around him are not maybe equally, but also very, they have to live with this too, because they let him leave a place with his car keys in his pocket, being as intoxicated as he was, and get behind the wheel of a car. It's not okay to do. It's not okay to let your friends do. Doesn't matter how they seem. If they seem like they can drive, because they probably can't.
Yep.
It's extremely unfortunate. Obviously, we're thinking about the family of the woman who died in the crash, and yeah, it's very unfortunate. It's very sad. There's obviously going to be football ramifications, but I think we just wanted to start by kind of touching on the reality of this depressing news.
Yeah, he was brought into court today. The judge said that never in his time behind the bar has he seen any sort of case where there has been somebody driving that fast. And 156, I think, was the actual. He slowed down to about 127 when the airbags deployed. Because the computer system in the car can tell you how fast you were going when the airbags deployed, and he was going around 127. His girlfriend was in the car with him. She sustained non-life-threatening but serious injuries to her arm. Henry Ruggs showed up to court in a wheelchair and a neck brace. His injuries were also classified as serious but non-life-threatening. His bail was asked to be set at like $1 million, but it was ended up being set at $150,000 with strict limits on not being able to leave your house, drink alcohol, having like an ankle monitor on, not being able, giving in your license and your passport, not being able to drive a car, all those kind of things for now. But yeah, I kind of don't have many words that many people haven't said before, but unless you've been impacted by somebody driving drunk, you don't really understand the pain that comes with that, and it really stinks because that's a choice. And whether he was drunk or not, he made a choice. I'm not going to say a conscious choice, but he made a choice to get behind the wheel, and people in his life let him make that choice. And unfortunately, a 23-year-old died. That I'm 23, so that someone my age died because somebody else made the choice to get behind the wheel drunk when you had all of the world at your fingertips. The NFL has had I'm pulling up the name for it. The NFL had something called the player transportation linked for the past 10 or so years. So players knew this was a thing. That's kind of a last case. There was always this kind of like privacy issue with the player transportation link. But it's basically just Uber and Lyft for a private, for the NFL, a private driver. It's a limo. So even with the privacy issues, it's either you have a little bit of privacy issues or you kill someone, and you killed someone. Henry Ruggs is going to face up to, let me just say first, there is no chance for probation. So if he's found guilty, he will go to Nevada state prison, because when a death is involved in a DUI in Nevada, there is no probation. So he faces a minimum of 2 years, and as of right now, up to 6 for reckless driving and driving under the influence involving a death. So he could face up to 26. And I know that the state is exploring other options for more charges to bring on behalf of his girlfriend, because she's also a victim here because she didn't get behind the wheel. So they're exploring adding even more years to that possible sentence. But yeah, I mean, that one of my huge main life rules is never letting anybody in my life get behind the wheel drunk. I don't care really what people do most of the times. I just, besides people being good people, but getting behind the wheel drunk is like a non-starter for me. I've lost friends that way by stealing keys before. So this one, unfortunately, I really don't feel that bad for Mr. Ruggs. But I really do send my deepest sympathies to the families of the other people and other parties involved, and I hope they find peace.
And I
That's all
think
I
there
have to
is
say
something
on
to
that.
say that, and I don't remember who said this in our group chat earlier, but we can be empathetic with
Mhm.
Henry Ruggs and not have to be sympathetic. And
Yep.
I think it is important to be empathetic and to understand that he is going to have to live with this for the rest of his life. And
Yep.
it's obviously it's a situation that happened because of his own doing, but it is unfortunate and probably going to be very hard to live with for a very long time. So let's move on to something slightly less depressing.
Yeah. Is
Ian.
it?
Hmm?
I said, is it? Are we going on to
Well,
the next one on the list?
yeah. I mean, this is slightly less depressing. I actually
Yeah.
consider this a good thing. And that's Calvin Ridley, wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. He put out a statement. God, was it Saturday or was
No,
it
it was
Sunday
Sunday.
morning?
It was Sunday morning.
So
He was first noted as he was personal issues. He wasn't going to play,
yeah.
and
Oh,
then
yeah.
it
You're
came out.
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So he put out a statement on Sunday morning that basically just said, he is stepping away from football for the time being due to his mental health and mental health issues that he's been having. Notably, he missed a game, I believe the game in London a couple weeks ago before their bye week,
Mhm.
due to the same, personal reasons. We assume it's the same issue. He played in a game after the bye week, and then obviously this is he's now going to be out indefinitely. And at first this might seem like another sad thing, obviously not to the level of the last one, but I actually think this is great.
Yeah.
I'm really happy about this. I'm happy that he feels okay enough, especially considering where he's at in his career right now. I think part of it is probably, he's having to fill the shoes of Julio Jones, and he's on the verge of um, you know right now he's basically playing for that big contract, and being
Mhm.
the position that he is in the league right now and how good he is as a player, he is playing for a very, very large life-changing
Yeah.
contract. And he's underperformed a little bit, and I'm sure that's partly in due to all of this stuff that's happening all at once. And I can't pretend to be inside the guy's head, but I'm happy that both the team and himself are comfortable enough to say what is happening, and that he feels okay to step away from the game of football while he gets himself right. Because, you know, the longer you put it off and the more you try and ignore it, the worse that type of stuff gets. And the fact that the team is supporting him in his time away is really good to hear, in all honesty.
Yep. For far too long, we have kept athletes on our professional sports in the MLB, in the NFL, in the NBA, as purely props for entertainment. And a lot of people forget that these people have the same issues you and I have, same issues you could find anybody on the street, and they have those same issues. Maybe not with money, maybe not with friends, but I mean, mental health issues are health issues, and there are a plethora of reasons mental health issues happen, and a lot of them come from just having chemical imbalances in the brain. And I'm just happy that to see players now prioritizing mental health and knowing when to step away. That football is not going to be your livelihood for the rest of your life. So to be able to prioritize yourself and say, hey, I need to get right before I come back to the sport is really, really good to see, especially as somebody who suffers with mental health issues myself, to be able to see, people even on bigger platforms learn when to say enough is enough and I need to focus on myself and get myself right, because you can't be a good player without being in the right headspace. So I'm really happy for him. It's sad we're not going to see him hopefully for just a little bit. I hope he maybe through the end of the season is kind of what I'm expecting. Maybe he'll come back a little bit. But I hope he takes all of the time he needs. I hope it's not something that's rushed because the organization wants to get him back, or fans want him back or anything like that. I hope he just gets completely right before he comes back to the game because I miss seeing the Calvin Ridley we know and love. So being able to get him back in the right headspace is, really important for him, for the sport. And I'm just thrilled that there was so much support behind his decision.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, the more that we see, I feel like athletes in this, that have such a large following and a large platform do this type of thing and talk about this type of thing so openly. I mean, we had Lane Johnson, right tackle of the Eagles, do it a couple weeks ago. Obviously, I think Brandon Brooks of the Eagles, also right guard, kind of was one of the first, I think, big names to come out about it a few years ago. And I think since then we've been seeing it more and more. But the more professional athletes that we have talking about this type of stuff and the more people with a large platform, I think the more normalized it's going to get in regular society. And the more normal it's going to be able to be for people growing up now and people going into the workplace and, being able to take a mental health day and not feel like, you're doing something wrong. Like if you're sick, you don't go to work. And it's just a big part of understanding that, a mental health issue is not that different than a health issue and both should be treated the same. And, again, hopefully that seeing these people on these platforms come out and talk about it will just normalize it across the board. And I agree that it's been awesome to see, particularly the support that's come out. I feel like we're always worried about putting that kind of stuff out there because of the people, the vocal minority, and it's been nice to not really see a lot of that. So that's awesome. I really hope Calvin, we wish him the best and hope he's back out there soon, but more than anything, hope that he's feeling like himself again soon.
Yeah. And
Good.
next, I think that's all I have to add there. Next, Von Miller traded from.
Yeah,
that hit me by surprise. I saw that one. I was like, what? Went to the Rams. Rams said they literally put a GIF on Twitter and said, "We're all in, baby," with like a bunch of poker chips.
Yeah, apparently they used, and I think Dan from the Undroppables at AWL Sabermetrics could tell this better than I can, but I believe they used a GIF of a character from a movie that ends up going all in and losing, like losing really big. So like,
Good.
that's not a good sign.
Good.
But yes, I believe they traded a second and a third round pick for Von Miller, and the Broncos are paying a little upwards of $9 million of his contract in this final year. So the Broncos get draft picks, and the Rams get another piece to their defense to hopefully help them compete for a championship.
Yeah. I saw an interview with Les Snead, the GM of the Rams, that he said his kids got him a mug with the meme of him that says, "Fuck them picks." You know the meme of him. It's like the LeBron
I'm gonna have
meme.
to like bleep that out now or something.
No, we were allowed to. Remember, we asked at the beginning of this.
We asked who at the beginning of what?
We asked Nick if we were allowed to curse.
Well, yeah, but now like I either bleep it out or I have to.
Okay,
like,
so bleep it out. Don't mark it explicit, Mr. Producer.
Well, yeah. Well, you're just making work for me.
Ugh, it's one sound effect. Anyway, it says bleep them picks, Les Snead, because his kids got it for him. Because that meme of him is on Twitter all the time because the Rams just have no regard for their draft picks. So they like these like mid-round picks where they can kind of throw dart throws, and yeah, that's about it. Crazy though. That one really took me by surprise.
I did see a really funny tweet, and I have no clue who tweeted it, but it was basically like, the last time they had a first round pick was when they picked Jared Goff in 2016, I think.
And they said, "We're never doing that again."
Yeah, we're never doing that again. And it's like, yeah, I totally get that. And they just they don't, whenever they pick someone, it's a running back or a wide receiver is what it feels like. And now they just don't pick anyone. But like, that is the literal definition of going all in. I don't know how they have any money left at this point. They don't have any picks left. They must have no money left, but it's incredible. It's probably very bittersweet for Broncos fans because Von Miller has definitely been, I think probably like their franchise player or something very close to that for a very long time. I mean, obviously Super Bowl 50, he was the MVP, and that defense carried Peyton Manning on his back. He's admitted it to that Super Bowl championship against the Panthers. And Von Miller had a hell of a game, was able to take home the MVP trophy. And, he's been incredible ever since being drafted into the league. And obviously over the past couple of years, the Broncos haven't had the success that they had earlier in his career on both sides of the ball. But it's going to be weird seeing him in a different uniform.
Yeah. I don't think I'm ready for that. His video, as he was leaving, was a beautiful video. He thanked over 50 people from the organization, players, coaches, training staff, scouting staff, front office, like concessions. Like he thanked over 50 people from every level of the organization. That made my heart happy. I know Denver's hurting from losing like a face of the city, but I'm happy to see what he's able to produce. And we know that the Rams are making a good run right now. So
I mean, yeah, you're putting him next to Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey.
yeah, that's
that
terrifying.
Defense is just
it's terrifying.
It's
Could you
ridiculous.
imagine having
No.
to throw a pass looking down that?
No, I can't imagine having to throw a pass with like
anyone.
the third stringers again. Like I would die. I'm dead.
Yeah.
Regardless. It's fine. But yeah, the Rams just look even better. Obviously, they're tied for top of the division with the Cardinals at 7-1. So that division is going to come down to the wire, and it's crazy to. I mean, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, I think, but it is crazy to think about the fact that one of those teams will be a wild card, and it's always funny when that happens because then you get a division like the NFC East. So it's fine. Although they're fine this year, but yeah. Moving right along. To the NFC North, and their quarterback Aaron Rodgers has been the subject of discussion.
It's Blake Bortles time.
Oh, stop it! It's Jordan Love time. But Aaron Rodgers has been the subject of discussion and a lot of I think confusion. It's only been like for the past it's only been today. We're recording this on Wednesday night. But he has tested positive for COVID, and it has been, I guess, revealed that he is unvaccinated. And the reason that this has been such a big deal was because a lot of people felt that they were led on to believe that he was fully vaccinated, when in fact he's not. And reports, I feel like, since then have been coming out in a lot of different varying ways and varying reports. And I haven't really been able to figure out fully what is what. I did see a report that apparently Aaron Rodgers had properly communicated with the Packers and the league that he was unvaccinated, so they did not feel let on, like they weren't let on to believe that he was vaccinated, like he didn't hand in like a fake vaccination card or anything like horrible like that. But apparently the Packers are beginning to be in hot water a little bit because they were treating him with media members like a fully vaccinated player in where he wears his masks, how he wears his masks. You've got people scouring all the old videos of the season and seeing like, okay, well, how is he allowed to do this when he wasn't actually vaccinated? We thought he was vaccinated, whatever. So any thoughts on that? Because it's still a developing situation, and he's going to be out.
It's been out for less than 12 hours. The news has come out less than 12 hours ago. The one thing is there's that press conference that everyone's pulling up. They're asking him if he's vaccinated, and he says, yeah, I'm immunized. It came out that he had like a homeopathic remedy to try and get immunized against COVID. So like very like natural medicine, not like an actual injection. So he kind of did like a sleight of words. He didn't say, yes, I'm vaccinated. He said, I'm immunized. So take that at what you will. So a lot of people are like, okay, so even media was like led on to believe that he was vaccinated by doing like a sleight of hand trick with his words. So I do think that at some point, all of his press conferences, he doesn't have a mask on. And I think that's going to be where the major fines and stuff come from, because the players don't.
With the Packers for sure.
Yes, I think the Packers are going to face a pretty hefty fine. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback. He speaks to the media after like every game, and he never has a mask on. So I think they're going to face a pretty hefty fine. I think this might lead the league to kind of tightening their COVID protocols again a little bit. If like a huge star can do it, then maybe other people are falling through the cracks a little bit. I don't think they need to be wearing masks anymore when they're outdoors. So
Correct.
yeah, so everyone was like, he does wear his mask when he's in the facilities, like inside during like film study and stuff like that. So the only real like people don't really film them when they're like in the middle of the facilities. So and we don't have like locker room conference like press conferences anymore. So I think the really only indication is that the press conferences where he is not wearing the mask. I think that's where they're going to be the hefty fines come from, because that's really the only time we're going to be able to pinpoint. I'm sure the NFL has cameras, so there actually might be more like in facilities and stuff. But other than that, yeah, I think it's dumb. That's pretty much it. I mean, they had a huge COVID. I've heard through a couple of the NFL sources that the Packers right now, the concern is that there are going to be more, because now your quarterback has COVID. You had 2 wide receivers who had COVID last week. You had coaches who had COVID in this past week. So I think the real concern at the current time is that there are going to be more cases before the game on Sunday against the Chiefs, and that's another big concern, is that you're going to have a rookie quarterback come in as against the Chiefs. So that's a pretty big
He's not a
concern.
rookie anymore, but
Not a rookie, but like he's
More or less.
non-starter. There we go. That's what, kind of how I meant it. A non-starting quarterback.
backup.
Coming
also
against the
known as.
Chiefs. Sure.
You're killing
Do you
the
like that
English
word?
man tonight.
Do you like that word?
I mean, I think I like backup better than non-starter.
Non-starter.
Personally, it rolls off
Are
the
you
tongue
sure?
just a little bit better.
Are you sure? But you sound a
But
little bit more smart when you say.
a little more smart.
Yeah,
That's
this is
me.
like not working well for me. Stop cornering me.
You're killing it. You're killing it. I think I'm gonna clip this and just put it on our
Please.
Twitter. Just
Please
this.
do.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see how that kind of happens. I think a lot of that's just going to be kind of waiting and seeing what the NFL does, seeing how the Packers handle it, and seeing if there's any more repercussions, especially in terms of players catching COVID, or if it turns into, I think, more or less like the first real breakout of the 2021 season. But on another note, Odell Beckham Jr., he was told to not come to practice today. He was sent home is probably too strong of a word, but he was told he didn't have to come. And a large reason for that is because sorry, I just saw a comment. Non-starter Nick Foles, Super Bowl MVP backup Nick Foles. Yeah, so go Birds. Anyway, Odell Beckham Jr., they looked for a trade partner at the trade deadline yesterday, Tuesday at 4 p.m., and nothing, a trade did not happen. There were discussions, but the teams could not come to an agreement on, what the Browns would receive back. So the Browns basically told OBJ, okay, you don't need to come in today. And the thought is that he is expected to be released more than likely, because his dad doesn't want him there. That's clear after the posts on Instagram about Baker Mayfield just not throwing him the ball.
It was like an 11-minute video.
I mean, yeah. He probably could have been a little more generous with like the cuts. I think he could have made it a little bit shorter, but yeah, it's very bizarre. I feel like that kind of thing you don't see in the NFL very often. I feel like it's a very NBA move. And I say that as a Sixers fan who's currently dealing with one of their star players not being there. Yeah, I'm okay. It's fine. But it's really interesting. And it feels like this OBJ marriage has been kind of destined to fail since the very beginning, since they traded him. And he's never gotten on the same page with their franchise quarterback and Baker Mayfield. Even though he's playing there with one of his best friends in Jarvis Landry, it feels like he's never really been happy. He's been on and off the field due to injury. But all in all, I feel like he's had like 3 really, really explosive games since being traded from the Giants. And honestly, I have not been able to keep track of how many years he's even been there. It feels like he's been there for like 10 seasons now, but I guess he's nearing the end of his contract that he had with the Giants. So, I mean, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Something like that did happen with what's his face? He does media. There was the Giants tight end who does the media now. I literally cannot speak today.
Who's
But
what now?
he does a couple media appearances now. He was the Giants tight end. I literally can't remember his name. He was cut last year. It happened with his girlfriend and him. They were like posting on Instagram, like, "Why don't you get me the ball?" All that
Not
kind of
Kelvin
stuff.
Benjamin.
No.
Oh.
This is not going well for me today. Anyway,
No,
so
it's fine. You're doing great.
it's totally fine. There is some history with that, and then I don't know. They could be a little bit more subtle about it, but I don't think he's going to be playing there. I was saying to you earlier that I think OBJ was a great piece, especially if you're going to be making like a pretty deep playoff run, and right now you're sitting at the bottom of your division. Not even close to the playoff, having a playoff berth. So I
I mean,
I
to
could
be
see
fair,
them
they are
releasing him.
close to a playoff
They're
berth. They're
close,
just not
but
close to winning the division. And even then, I
yeah,
mean, they're only 2 games back, so they
yeah.
still have a good team. But even if he's back, I don't even know if that's what's best for the team. Like it
No,
hasn't translated into success in the past.
no, he's literally just running wind sprints. Like that's all he's there for, and it's like they're not even like super like designed routes to like get your focus on someone else. Like they're not working. Like people like straight up like are not covering him as much anymore. Like they're still covering him, obviously you have to, but not as much anymore because he's kind of designed as like this like fake route. He's not getting thrown the ball. He's not helping the team. At this point, he's become a huge distraction. Baker
I
Mayfield
think that's what they're
today,
trying to avoid, to be honest.
yeah. Yep, and it's already starting. They asked Baker Mayfield today, like, "Do you want an apology?" He said something about he would love an apology. They were like, "Are you hurt by it?" He said, "No, I'm not hurt. I'm just surprised." Regarding the video his father put out.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a lot of drama. I think it's ultimately just going to end in OBJ getting released and picked up by somewhere else. Did you already say the numbers from the contract?
No, but I have him right here.
Yeah.
So he was due 15.7 million was his cap hit, and if he was for this season, and if he was cut during this season, that entire thing would end up being dead cap for the Browns. And obviously, we're already halfway through the season, so half of that is already paid out. Half of his contract is already paid out. So if they released him now, then they would have the rest of his salary on the books, which I think you said was around half of that, like 8 million ish or something. So yeah, it's obviously rough. I think they obviously wanted to avoid cutting him at the beginning of the season due to that dead cap. But if this is going to become a distraction, we've seen teams take much larger dead cap hits than that.
Yeah.
I mean, the Eagles took like what feels like $90 million in dead cap from Carson Wentz. So because of all the issues surrounding it. And when he's not helping your team on the field, he's 29 years old. He has been with the team now for 3 years, and it just feels as though he's more of a hindrance than he is
I agree.
helpful. So it's a very bizarre situation. It's one that I think, I feel like a lot of times when you see these trades that, people talk about on Twitter before they actually happen, they never actually come to fruition. But Odell Beckham Jr. to the Browns was like a very popular one back in whatever that was, like 2018. And it actually happened, and it just didn't work out. And I guess that's why Twitter aren't GMs. But
yep.
it's very odd. Maybe Dave Gettleman was right after all. Probably not. He's a moron, but
Probably
it's
not.
fine.
Maybe not. He probably just got lucky.
Any more final thoughts on OBJ and that whole situation?
No more final thoughts. I think one more final thought would be that everybody was like, he's not a drama queen. It's just New York. I'm not calling him a drama queen, but there is always something. I don't want to say it's always drama, but there is always something, and it seems like there is something not in New York. It's something with him, and I hope that he finds a place that he really fits in. Do you know what's your thoughts? Where do you think he could, if he gets released, 2 picks, Matt?
I mean, I think there's a billion different options. I think the Chiefs would make a lot of sense, mainly just because it feels like they are discombobulated. I feel like right now, because all they have is Tyreek Hill and they have really no one behind him at wide receiver, they're always going to be like the first destination that everyone points to.
But Byron Pringle.
Stop. The Saints obviously need a wide receiver with Michael Thomas now being out for the rest of the season, which was something we forgot to mention earlier, I think.
We did forget that.
Yeah, so he's out for the rest of the season. He put a statement on, but on Twitter. Yeah, I mean the Saints make sense, but I don't know. I think he's going to go somewhere because for the most part he's going to be able to be cheap because the Browns are going to have to pay the rest of his contract regardless. So it reminds me of kind of Antonio Brown being released from the Raiders a couple years ago. Obviously not the same level of the off the field issues, but just in the way that all of a sudden it's just about opportunity, it's about location and the chance to compete for a Super Bowl. And I think the Chiefs, if they think that he has anything left, Andy Reid has always been a really, really, really good leader of men. He's always been, he's never been shy about taking on strong personalities or guys with trouble pasts or whatever. But it'll be interesting. I don't know, but I'm excited to see what will happen.
That was something I was gonna say too with him was people online are like, well, the Raiders, like, look, spot right there. I just think there's absolutely too much going on over there. I think they're not gonna take on something else. You lost your head coach, your players going to jail. And this a lot of, one thing that I had thought of with Henry Ruggs too was like, man, if someone was gonna give him a second chance, it's always a team like the Raiders. But unfortunately, for OBJ, I just think that there's too much disorganization in that organization, but I see that one floating around a lot. And I just don't think it's the right time. I think if one of the two things didn't happen, of the two things that have happened in the past month, then maybe there's a chance, but it's absolutely in chaos over there. And they're still winning. They're still doing good because despite it all. So I see that one floating around and I don't really like that one. But I do think the Chiefs
Wouldn't be shocked, though.
I wouldn't, but they're always that entire organization loves to give second chances, but the Chiefs has been a very popular one of late, and I could see that happening. Anyway, that's that.
Yeah, so that's I think now that we are 40 something minutes in, I think that basically does us for the news of the
news.
Week. So we did say that was going to be the majority of this week's show, but we do want to talk a little more about on the field football. And the way that we're going to approach that is we're going to about halfway through the season now, we are going to take a look at the current playoff picture in the NFL in both the AFC and the NFC. And we're basically just going to talk a little bit about do we think these teams are the ones that are going to be in the playoffs 8 or 9 weeks from now? Or how do we see changing? Who do we think is going to drop out? Maybe even who do we think is going to pop in? So real quick, how about I just run through the AFC and we will take from there.
Yep.
So the 1 seed in the AFC right now is the Tennessee Titans, the Derrick Henry-less Tennessee Titans right now. We have the 2 seed being the Buffalo Bills. And after that, the Raiders and the Ravens also currently winning their division. And then after that, we have the Bengals, the Steelers, and the Chargers bringing up the last 3 wild card spots. And as a reminder, the new playoff format being the 1 seed is the only team that has a bye week. And we have 3 total wild card spots. So, I think the biggest current omission to that list, not omission, but team that's missing, I guess, would be the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to mention is the teams that are listed on the bubble is in this order: Patriots, Browns, Broncos, Chiefs, Colts. So, I mean, I see this list changing a bit. I think that the NFC one, we'll get into that, but the AFC one, I could see a lot of changes, honestly. I think the Titans are going to make playoffs. I think they might slip into a wild card spot. I don't know that the Titans will stay that high, especially a Derrick Henry-less Titans team with the Ryan Tannehill that's been struggling a bit this year. I think in order for them to stay as good as they are, I think Julio Jones needs to step up a little bit. I think A.J. Brown needs to continue to carry his weight like he has been, but without Derrick Henry and with a loss of production for A.J. Brown, there's a chance that this Titans team slips pretty far. I'm intrigued to see what Adrian Peterson does for them, but another one is the Raiders. I think you and I had differing opinions. I believe I said they were a pretender. I believe you said they were I said they were a contender. You said they were a pretender. I believe we were.
I believe you.
Anyway, I know we were different. We're like both kind of on the cusp. That one I'm still on the cusp about. I don't know. I think the AFC is in like such turnover right now that there is a good chance they could stay here, but there's just as easy of a chance that they slip.
I mean,
And
they are the 2 seed. It's kind of
yeah,
crazy. I think the biggest argument against them is that I don't think I would ever say that. I mean, even though they might be playing like it right now, I don't think they'd ever really be my pick for the best team in that division.
no.
And I think that's the toughest thing. Is I think the Chargers are a really, really good team. I think Justin Herbert's been struggling a little bit these past couple
Mhm.
weeks, but I expect him to turn around. And I mean, the Chiefs, I think, are only like what 1 or 2 games behind.
Chiefs are 3
Um,
and 4 right now. Or this was an old article. I think they're 5,
Yeah,
3
they're
and
4
5.
and 4
4
now,
and
and the
4.
Raiders are
So
5 and 2. So
yeah.
they're 1 win behind the Raiders. Like yeah, if I had to bet on it, I would say that the Chiefs figure it out, and that doesn't, exactly bode well for the Raiders. And to argue your
Mhm.
Titans point, I do agree that they most likely probably won't be the 1 seed without Derrick Henry.
Yep.
But I'd be very surprised if they don't win that division because
Yeah.
the Jacksonville Jaguars suck. The Houston
I
Texans
forgot
suck.
about their division. Yeah.
And the Indianapolis Colts would be, the closest thing. But the Titans they've already swept them on the season. They've already
Yeah.
beaten them twice, which gives them basically every tiebreaker that they could need to stay ahead of the Colts, who have been struggling in their own right. Again, I don't think they're the 1 seed, but I think, it might go a little bit later into the season without Derrick Henry, as in, them competing for that division. But I do think that they still end up winning it.
And what do you think about the Steelers being on this current listed playoff picture? Do you think they stay there? Do you think they get bumped?
I think they probably get bumped. I just
For who?
don't.
The Chiefs or the Patriots? Like something like that.
Definitely the Chiefs. I could see I think the Browns will end up being better than them. I mean, maybe even the Colts. Like, I wouldn't be shocked to see the
Mhm.
Colts sneak in there, but I just don't think the Steelers are that good of a team. I think Big Ben is completely washed, and they keep losing key pieces. It feels like on both sides of the ball, and I don't know. I don't think they're a very good team. I think that obviously, yeah, they're 4 and 4, but I think that they're probably a team that ends up ending the season at like an 8 and 9, 9 and 8 type record. And I don't know if that's going to be good enough when I look at some of the other teams that are going to be competing for that 5, 6, 7 wild card spot. Because I think the Bengals are a really good team. I
Yep.
think the Chargers are a good team. I don't know about the Patriots, but I think the Chiefs and the Browns will both figure it out. So
Mhm. Yeah. I will say I usually don't make an argument for the Patriots, but this Patriots team is catching steam, and it's pretty clear. I think that with the right roster management and maybe like a waiver, I'm surprised they didn't do anything at the trade deadline anyway, but um, a good like waiver wire pickup that the Patriots could hold their own and find their way to sneak in here. But again, this list I see changing a lot more than the NFC one because the AFC has kind of been a giant turmoil. Like it's not bad, but like kind of just like such startling things coming out of the AFC that nobody, I think if you would have predicted that this was the current order of what playoffs were going to look like, people would have called you absolutely nuts and told you to stop watching football. So I could see a lot changing. I think both of us can.
yeah. I mean, it's tough. I feel like it's even harder to make arguments against some of those meddling teams now with the expanded
Mhm.
playoffs. Like, I
Yeah.
think most years past, I wouldn't really be that interested in the idea of the Patriots making it. But in all honesty, like looking over their schedule, they've been pretty decent. They've had good wins over bad teams and good wins
Mhm.
over good teams, close losses to good teams. Maybe they're better than I'm giving them credit for. Mac Jones has been playing fairly well for a rookie quarterback. So yeah, I mean, they're probably going to be in competition for that last playoff spot.
Yeah, and I mean, right now they're only separated by what, 1 game with the Bills? The Patriots are I know the Patriots are 4
They're
and
4 and
4.
4, and the Bills
The Bills
are
are
5 and
5 and
2.
2. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, not crazy, but I mean, that's not also like a million games back. They're in second place in their division. Pretty interesting. Do you wanna scoot on to the NFC?
Yeah, I'll
I
scoot on
literally
over
can't
there.
speak today. I literally can't speak today.
You're doing your best, and that's all that matters.
I'm just
So
trying
right
to.
now, the NFC is very, very top heavy. We have
Yeah.
the Packers as the 1 seed at 7-1. Obviously, they have a matchup this week against the Chiefs, and they will not have their quarterback. Then we have the Arizona Cardinals at 7-1, coming up at the 2nd seed. Obviously, the Packers have the tiebreaker because of their Thursday night win a week or so ago. We have the Cowboys as the 3 seed at 6-1. We have the Bucks as the 4 seed at 6-2. Then we have the Rams as the 5 seed, the first wild card at 7-1. So far we have one team with more than one loss of your first 5 seeds, and then you have the
Yeah.
Saints at 5-2, and the Carolina Panthers at 4-4. On the bubble, we have the Vikings, the Niners, the Falcons, and the Eagles and the Seahawks, all with 3 wins. So, yeah, very top heavy. And I think it's really just going to come down to those last 2 playoff spots, the last 2 wild card spots, with Jameis Winston being out for the season now, and Taysom Hill stepping up as the starting quarterback, obviously with very little firepower on offense, but a really strong defense for the Saints at 5-2. So, what do you think? What do you see?
I completely agree. I think it is going to come down to I don't see the Panthers making the playoffs really. Well, who's in their division again? I can never remember
The
this.
Bucks, the Saints,
Yeah, I
and
don't
the
see
Falcons.
any real way. I don't think the Carolina Panthers end up making playoffs. I think Saints again is dependent on what's going to happen with Taysom Hill in there instead of Jameis, and kind of the rest of their roster staying healthy. And if they can keep the depth they have, I think that's a huge thing, especially with Michael Thomas not coming back, with, Alvin Kamara being a pretty bell cow running back. I think that theirs is going to hinge on staying healthy from here on out. Yeah, I mean, that is so crazy. Looking at the standings, like how many games that there's only one team in the first 6 you said with only more than one loss.
First 5.
That's
So the top 5
insane.
seeds, 4 of them have 1 loss, and the Bucks are the only one with 2.
Yeah, I think for me, the people that might knock out those final 2, I think the Seahawks have a chance if Russell Wilson's coming back, which we have heard that he is moving a lot quicker than we expected him to originally. So I think the Saints could kind of vie for a spot. I
Do you
think
mean
the
the
Eagles
Seahawks?
could. Yeah, the Seahawks. The Eagles could.
Mm.
The division is literally trash. So the Eagles could.
The only thing we have going for us is the fact that in our last 5 games, I think 4 of them are division matchups or something like that. And
Yeah,
our
that's what
division
it's
is
going to hinge
trash.
on.
So.
But yeah, I mean, the Vikings are okay. The 49ers
the Vikings,
are
the
okay.
Vikings are the biggest one for me, I think.
Yeah.
I think they'll definitely be competing for that last spot. I think.
What's the rest of their schedule look like? Let's look it up.
In all honesty, I think the Saints would be hard pressed to not make the playoffs at this point at 5-2. Obviously, you lose Jameis, but you gain Taysom Hill. It's not like Jameis was really winning them games anyway. He's been fine. I think Taysom. Honestly, I think I would have picked Taysom to be their quarterback at the beginning of the season. I don't know if he's necessarily a better quarterback than Jameis, but considering what they have at receiver and at pass catchers in general, I think I'd rather have an offense that runs through Taysom Hill in the running game, especially when you have that strong of a defense. So I think that's really going to help them. I don't know if they're going to win in any shootouts with Taysom at quarterback, but I mean, I think ideally they don't have to. And Sean Payton is a very good head coach. And I mean, he went 5-2 with Jameis Winston, and Jameis Winston didn't do much. So I think the Saints are more or less locked in. I don't really see any of the other teams above them. The top 6 seeds really are all kind of locked in for me. I think it's going to be that last seed. I think it's the Carolina Panthers. I don't think they're going to be in. I think they'll be in the mix for the rest of the season, especially if they get CMC back. But
he is due to return off IR. We didn't mention that.
Yeah, he's designated a return. We'll see if so the practice window is open. They have 3 weeks to actually activate him.
Yep.
So we'll see if he actually gets activated for this week, but I think next week is more likely. But the Vikings are a big one for me, where I just think they're a pretty good team. I think they've gotten very unlucky, especially earlier on in the season with some very close losses. But Kirk,
They always do.
yeah, exactly. Kirk has been
Always
playing
comes down to
pretty
Google.
well. Not so well this last week, but they have Dalvin Cook, obviously Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, some great pieces on offense, and their defense has underperformed a little bit, but I think they're going to be.
Their schedule is not the easiest. I pulled up their schedule. They play the Chargers, the Packers twice, the Bears twice,
They haven't played any of their
Steelers,
Packers games.
Niners, Lions. So
That Lions game though.
I know, but like I could see the Bears walking away. I mean, it depends if Nagy's what he's gonna do, but the Bears could walk away with one. The Packers, I think, are gonna win both. The Chargers, the Niners, the Steelers, the Rams could all beat them. So I don't know. Their rest of the schedule is not it's not no way the hardest, but it's not the easiest either. Also, one other thing I wanted to say when we mentioned the Packers, now it's like 30 minutes later, and I didn't say it earlier, but there's a chance that Aaron Rodgers is not back for even next week's game because
the earliest
he
he
would
can be
have
back is for next week.
Saturday. Yeah, but Saturday. So he would have to. So there's a chance he misses two. Because you were saying they play the Chiefs this week, and I don't know who they play the week after, but
yeah, I don't know
what I'm saying.
But yeah, I mean, if we're looking at schedules, unfortunately, because I hate my life, the easiest schedule of those teams and the entire NFL for the rest of the season, I believe, is the Eagles, at least of a week or two ago. So that would have included the Lions game. Yeah, I mean, the Eagles could make a run and then lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, totally.
It'd be great. It'd be fantastic.
Totally.
Yep, really love it.
Packers in the week after are playing the Seahawks, so they could both return at the same time, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers.
That'd be beautiful.
Possible. That would be a really important game.
Yeah, I mean, it might be. Also, those games, for some reason, whenever the Packers and the Seahawks play, it's always just very weird. Those are very weird matchups, very weird outcomes. But yeah, I mean, I think if Russell Wilson comes back, the favorites would probably be the Seahawks if they can figure their stuff out, and Russell Wilson can, put the team on his back and take them to a playoff berth. Because again, I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to take a lot of wins for a team to get this final playoff spot. Yeah. Like the Eagles are one game out, and that's saying something. Like we've looked horrible. Yeah, we beat the Lions, but I think I could beat the Lions. Like, not saying too much.
You alone, or you at every position?
Me at every position, ideally.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's at least somewhat fair then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely less interesting, I think, than the AFC side, because again, I don't see a lot of change. Maybe some shuffling within the first 6 seeds, but it's really that 7th seed that's going to be the big difference maker over the last half of the season, and it's going to be the one that people are vying for. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see a very middling team make it and lose in the first round, and it's just kind of like, well, that wasn't worth it. So yeah.
Yep. That's about it. I think that 7th seed is completely up for grab. I think the 6th one is in a little bit of jeopardy, but not positive. So yeah, we're at the middle of the season. Can you believe that?
No, I can't. It feels like I've aged about 10 different years this season, and it's only halfway done. And
I also want that.
I hate it. You want what?
I
team
want
of Michael
that.
Duncans to make this in Madden.
On Madden.
Okay, well,
please.
All like 15 overall. That's very accurate. Actually, I would argue that my punting would probably be at least a 50 overall. I'm pretty good at punting. I can't kick. Like, I can't be a kicker, but I can punt. So
I'm a pretty good receiver. I just don't like running.
I mean, I think I'm an okay receiver too, but we're talking NFL standards.
I'll be like an 80 overall.
Okay, we're getting a little I think that's probably a good point now that we're officially talking about me in Madden. I think that is a good point to end this show. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for tuning in. You can find this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, under the Undroppables Playbook on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Music, or whatever, Google Podcasts, I don't know. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter at mpduncan75. I'm the producer for the Undrafted podcast as well, hosted by Jax Falcone at Dino Game Theory. And you can find any other stuff that I'm doing at the Undroppables or theundroppables.com. Ashley?
Yeah, you could find me on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's at the beginning of Ashley. You can find all my content on the Undroppables website, on the Undroppables TikTok and Twitter pages. Twitter is the best place to find me, to interact with me, to talk to me. I am going to be tweeting out a petition for Madden to release a all Michael Duncan release. So if you'd like to sign that, please come to my Twitter page and we will all fight for this. We fight for what's right here.
Killing the English language this week.
It's really hard, like
Murdering
really
it.
hard this week. But yeah, we will have you guys back here on Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for another episode live of the Undroppables Playbook. If you want to get as unhinged as always, well, you can come here. If you don't know how to speak English, neither do I, apparently. So everybody's welcome here, even if you're having a day where you literally can't speak. So we'll see you guys next week.
Have a great week and go
Hopefully
Birds.
a lot less eventful.
I hope so.